But first, do you think you have a moral duty to vote? Do you feel a moral duty to go out and cast your vote? Let us know your thoughts. 0207 862 2222 is the number that you need. Now, as we gear up to a general election, some experts have warned that voter turnout could be lower than the last time round, where about 67% of people who could vote actually did get out and do that. Younger people, people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, and people from ethnic minorities are less likely to vote. Now, over the years, there you can see it really dipped off in 2001. You could see it peaked at 2016 with the Brexit referendum. But since then, there's been a decline. The cost of living crisis, sleaze, scandals, by-elections triggered by bad behaviour have been cited as some of the reasons why the electorate might not bother to show up on the 4th of July. So I'm asking you, is it okay to not bother voting? Cristo, is it okay?
I think that you have a moral obligation to go to the polling station. Whether that extends to actually voting for a party, no, I don't think you need to do that. But it is a privilege that we have our vote. I understand completely with our two-party system, with our horrific people in Parliament, with the diabolical choice that we have, with all of those sorts of things, first past the post, make people just, the thought of having to actually go there and vote for any of these people, I understand how repellent that must be to people, because I feel the same way. I would love nothing more this year than to spoil my ballot. I'm very tempted to do so. I understand why people might do that, but it is that is the point I'm making. If you go to the polling station...
So yes, you have look, I've got my ballot box here. We're going to run a proper, certified voting systems here. So you're saying yes, you should...
It's your job to go to the polling station and do something with your ballot. Whether that means spoil it, whether that means vote, yes.
All right, I'm putting you as a yes.
Draw a phallic symbol on it?
No.
I already tried.
No, we're not. No, we're not doing any of that. Put those papers away.
But no, but okay. That is making your voice heard.
All right, perhaps you should, and this is perhaps a conversation for another day. Some people have suggested that you should have an option of a box to tick of none of the above.
I would love none of the above to win a constituency. Okay. I'd love spoiled ballots to win a constituency.
Tessa, should you have a moral obligation to vote?
I find it very hard to inject the idea of morality into any conversation we have about politics. I find it particularly difficult, the idea of leveraging a lack of morality at people who don't vote when, as you said at the offset, the people who don't vote tend to be from the poorer, lowest socioeconomic groups. They tend to be younger. They tend to be disproportionately from ethnic minorities. Are we suggesting, therefore, those groups are less moral? No, we're not even vaguely suggesting that, thus proving the point that if you don't vote, you're not less moral, you are more disengaged with a system geared to suit the establishment.
We should point out that your brother, I believe, is standing for election in this election. So do you, for his sake, do you not think that people should have a moral obligation to go out and cast their vote?
This may or may not surprise you, but I don't currently live in East Lothian, and I'm not talking to the people of Dunbar, but that's what he's doing on Facebook quite a lot. It's really weird, because most of the time when I think about my wee brother, like we're arguing about curly-whirlies in my head from 1978, or we're having some kind of standoff about who looks after mum's dog. So to suddenly see him, you know, in a sort of flat jacket or whatever they wear, those sort of, you know, middle-aged men wear those sort of, what do you call them? You're a middle-aged man, the gilet to hide all kind of middle-aged discrepancy. And with his hair combed, it's just a revelation to see him in this different light.
Right. He's standing for the Lib Dems.
He's a Lib Dem and he's up against some...
All right. So I'm putting you down as a no.
There's no moral obligation
to vote for my brother. You don't think there's a moral obligation?
Or anyone else.
Can I just ask, because I know a lot of people want to have their say, and I want to go to the cause in just a second. Tying it back to what we just saw, making a tenuous link between the D-Day celebrations here.
This is tenuous.
But it is. I think it is tenuous.
It's not
but I think
tenuous.
it's a point. I think it's a point worth making. People fighting for freedom and democracy. Does that not tie in with you at all? That you've been given that freedom, the ability to go to a ballot box. Right. Should you not have a moral obligation to do so because of the sacrifices that other people have put in place so that you have that right.
But there's so many kind of weird myths around the war. We went to war for Poland. We then celebrated our victory in that war for Poland, leaving Poland on the other side of the Iron Curtain where they weren't going to get a free vote for well over half a century. So no, I don't think we can tie it to freedom in that way. And the other thing is, just quickly, because you know my pet story is Eastern Europe, why is it moral that my husband works and pays his taxes and he's not allowed to vote in this election? He's Romanian. That's bonkers. He pays taxation. He has no representation. So there's loads of immoral discrepancies here.
Yeah, and that's perhaps a conversation for another time, because that does happen to a lot of permanent residents here who don't have British passports. Now, let's speak to people at home. Natalie in Buckinghamshire. Natalie, welcome to the show. Do you have a moral obligation? Should you have a moral obligation to go out and vote?
Hi, good morning, everyone. So, as I said to your producers, from when my kids were little, I've always taken them to go and vote and explain the process. The next general election, my kids will be old enough to vote. For me, I've always said to them, if you do not vote, don't moan. You have got no right to moan about what's going on.
OK, so you think you should be morally obliged to go out and vote?
Yes, if you want to moan about what's happening with the government, you need to vote to make that change. If you don't...
Goes in there. You're right. I mean, you know, Natalie's got a point, Cristo, right? If you don't go out and vote and you're saying, well, potholes, government, NHS is not working, well, if you didn't go out and vote, perhaps you don't have the right to moan about it.
And we were, your D-Day point is absolutely valid. We were given freedom as a result of what happened 80 years ago.
We weren't given freedom. In Britain, we were already free.
Yeah, but we were, yes, but there was a very big threat that freedom was going to be taken away from us. And therefore, that freedom means that you should have the moral obligation, not the legal obligation. I think that would be wrong to make it illegal. But morally, you're wrong not to go to the ballot box and make your voice heard.
OK. And Tessa, just picking up on Natalie's point there, I mean, it's your profession to go out and moan about things that are happening in the country. If you don't vote, should you still be able to go out and moan?
My point is, if my vote translated into change on the ground, or indeed representation... No, it's not. You cited in your little graphic earlier that the highest spike in voting recently was the Brexit campaign. It was over 70%, unprecedented for modern times. Why is that?
Because the vote
every
counted.
Single vote counted.
But Tessa, you can go out and vote for parties that want to bring in proportional representation.
And we are more likely to find blue cheese on the moon than we are to see somebody other than Labour get in my local constituency.
Hard enough, Tessa. Right, Natalie, thank you. Great way to kick us off. Dave in Manchester. Dave, welcome to the show. Should you have a moral obligation to go out and vote?
I would have agreed with you. In 1997 was the last time I voted in a general election. But sad to say, not now. I get the idea that about the effect of people losing their lives in wars, and you know, everybody one person, one vote now, and the fight that the suffragettes had to go through to get their vote as well, and I agree with reducing the voting age. I also agree with proportional representation. But what I see from my window is a lot less posters going up with the major political parties going up. There's no doorstepping. There's no leafleting. So if nobody really asks for my vote, then I'm afraid I am politically homeless where I am.
I'm going to put you down as a no.
Dave is so lucid. Would you think of standing for Parliament, Dave?
Oh, absolutely not. No, I'm a pensioner, me. I'm 70. No, it's...
well, look at Biden. Never too late.
Never too late, Dave. Dave, thank you. Look, we're going to continue this conversation after break. We're going to be taking more of your calls on this. Whether you think that you have a moral duty to go out and vote, or is it OK just not to bother? And if you don't bother, should you have the right to complain about things and the state of the country? 0207 862 2222 is the number that you need. More of your calls on whether or not you think you have a moral duty to vote, or if it's OK just not to bother. Let's hear from Marie in Glasgow. Marie, welcome to the show. What do you think? Should you have a moral duty to go out and vote?
Certainly not.
No?
No.
OK. Why not?
And it won't be. Well, I think it's up to the individual. If they think it's going to benefit them, yes. If they don't, no. And it won't make any difference to me who gets in.
OK, but...
I'll tell lies.
OK, but Marie, I think you're making the point that Tessa was making, that because of our electoral system, the first past the post, there are many constituencies up and down the country where your vote has less power than if it was a swing constituency, a marginal constituency. But doesn't it apply that you could vote for the parties slowly, if everybody votes for the parties, to change the system? The only change that comes is through the ballot box, isn't it?
Well, I wouldn't say so. If you didn't have politicians lying, saying one thing one day and one thing the next day, I've
vote for different ones.
But this year I will not.
Vote them out.
It wouldn't make any difference who gets in. You've got a Labour leader in Scotland whose family-run business doesn't even pay the minimum wage to their staff.
OK.
I just want to ask Marie
a
really quick question. You've got two systems. I'm jealous of people in Scotland because you've got the first past the post that I think should be kicked out down here in Westminster. But you also have proportional representation for Holyrood. Does that mean that you vote in the Scottish elections because it's more representative?
No.
OK.
No.
All right, Marie, thank you. Marie doesn't...
There's no pleasing Marie.
There's not going to be pleasing Marie. William in London. William, good afternoon. Welcome to the show. Should you have a moral duty to go out and vote, William?
Very good morning, I should say to you. Yeah, well, there's so much to say here, but absolutely categorically not. It's a ridiculous idea to say that people have got a moral imperative to go out and vote. First of all, just to very quickly push back on what Christoph said, in that you've got a duty to turn up at the ballot box. Well, if the political system that we've got isn't serving you, why should you take time out of your day to even turn up at the polling booth just to spoil your ballot paper? That seems ridiculous to me. To actually, you've got to go out of your way to turn up at the polling booth just to spoil your ballot paper. Absolutely not. That's a silly notion.
I'll answer that. Firstly, because it's a privilege to vote. Secondly, I get it. I get it completely that none of them are serving you in Westminster at the moment. But that doesn't mean that you don't have a massive privilege by voting, a moral obligation to go and have your voice heard because of that privilege. And if none of them are serving you, imagine the message it sends if the number of people who decide to write none of the above or scribble out the names or spoil their ballot. That is sending a message. In the London election...
Well, can I come back on that?
Yeah, but let me just tell you one other point. In the London election, people not voting beat the votes of any of the candidates that were in power. Don't you think that that's terrible, William?
Well, don't you think that every 5 years or whatever it is, nearly 40% of people don't bother to vote in the first place? Nearly 40% of people aren't politically engaged every single electoral cycle not to go out and vote. What kind of message does that send to the country? Secondly, and this is very, very important, I'm with the late, great George Carlin on the idea that if you don't have a vote, you don't have the right to complain if you don't bother to vote. As he said, where's the logic in that? If you keep electing incompetent, self-serving, roguish politicians, then you don't have the right to complain. I, on the other hand, who completely disengaged, stayed indoors on polling day, just watched TV, have every right to complain as much as I want.
OK. William, thank you.
Everybody should watch George Carlin as far as I'm concerned.
No, William, thank you.
I might vote for William.
Interesting, yeah. You might have got all the votes for William. William, thank you for that. Let's speak to Amanda. Amanda, good morning. Amanda in Lancashire. Should you have a moral obligation to vote? Yes or no?
Morning. Actually, I agree with Christoph. Don't often, I must admit. But, yeah, you do have a moral right. And you don't... Personally, I don't think you have the right to complain if you don't go out and vote. As Christoph said, better to spoil your ballot paper and say something. Or if you're really that peeved off with everybody, stand yourself. You want to change things. Get in there.
But Amanda, I mean, I hear you, but so much of what you said there is premised on you having personal agency. To stand yourself and not lose your deposit, you need either local connections, or if you lose your deposit, you need private wealth. You also have to have spare time. And there's a massive disincentive around the voting issue if you live in a safe seat. And time is money. If you're freelance, if you do shift work, you have to bust yourself to get... You say, don't dismiss me with a little quiet okay.
No, I want to get as many calls in as possible. I've got ballots.
We've both been got rid of.
I've got ballots to count. But when you say get involved, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stand and, as you very rightly said, lose your deposit. But you can get involved in local politics. That doesn't cost.
Or leafleting, or going around and knocking on doors. There are different ways to get involved that don't involve actually having to hand over a deposit.
Right, I need...
Yes, I hear you, but if you live in a safe seat, there's precious little incentive to do it.
I'm going to count the ballots now. This is... Can you hear the anticipation?
If it goes into double numbers, do you want me to help?
Have you?
Hang on.
Do you want my swingometer?
Yeah.
But, yes. No, we need Jeremy for that. And I bet he's got a swingometer. There we go. Right. OK. So we've got no, yes, yes, no. Oh, gosh. Yes. 3 for yes, 4 for no. It's a nail biter. It's a 52-48, really, isn't it?
It's a Keir Starmer, Rishi Sunak.
And that always works out.
So no. So there you go, Cristo.
There is no moral obligation to vote. The people have spoken.
Yeah.
That's democracy.
Well, how can there be a moral obligation? How can you place morality into the spectrum when we know that the most disadvantaged, the poorest, the most in need of good governance aren't the ones voting?
Okay. But that's not a blanket insult against all those people.
I have to bring it to a close now. Thank you for your calls on this.